Hello. Um, I'm having my own challenges, I guess. Uh, Letting go. We go through layers or spirals or cycles or however you want to say it, uh, of the next layer or level of mind. I'm I'm feeling shy almost of turning on the webcam and just going what I call live with it. I mean, obviously it's not live because it's recorded and all that, but anyhow, you know what I mean. I'm not reading something I wrote. I actually started a journal here. And I got down 2 sentences. I had to get up, use the restroom. As I came back, I saw myself doing all those things, um, like picking some earrings and turning on the lights and putting on the makeup or the lipstick, that's all I wear, that would let me know that I was going to do a live journal. But how could that be? I sat down to write one and I got as far as I am love. That much I know. Oh well, you know. In it, I just wanted to work out some of why I'm feeling like this. Um, Kind of ungrounded, just not knowing, just not knowing, getting comfortable with a whole new layer or level of not knowing. It's one thing to not know things about the world and to admit that we don't. It gets a little closer to home when it's things about self that we're invited to come into not knowingness around. Um, like everyone else, I've been experiencing a lot of what I would call DNA upgrades. The the discomforts in the body, the strangeness with the sleep cycles, the just all kinds of things uh, going on. The for this body, often an increase in pain or a decrease. One never knows. Sometimes I'll go through several weeks, and the body simply won't need the level of pain meds that are more the norm for it. So, who knows? Um, so, I'm feeling like, and all I can do is speak for me, and I invite you to speak for you, and to think for you, and to feel for you, and to, trust yourself more than anyone or anything else. The way things seem to me right now is that this body has been rather massively upgraded, and has a new level. There's a new feel to the energy that's running through it. And there are new abilities that are here. And as I watch and don't see them manifest, I look to myself. I look to what do I have growing amongst my beliefs that would be in the way of something manifesting for me. Um, Ultimately, none of this matters. So it's really not important. I think ultimately what matters is living with integrity and being true and loyal to the self, to the inner beingness and what we find there. And everything else takes care of itself when we live like that. And the rest of it is more or less fine-tuning, huh? But as a part of my fine-tuning, let's see, how many years ago was it? I don't remember now. What are years anyway? On a visit to St. Louis once, a decade or two ago, I had a really auspicious experience on walking into the arch there on the banks of the river in St. Louis. I was greeted on the etheric plane, I guess is one way to say it. I mean, these beings were not 3D visible to everyone, but I saw them. And they came down an invisible etheric ramp of sorts, a walkway, when the physical walkways were, angled in other ways. This just was something else. And I was greeted and taken into higher consciousness on a journey, 99% of which I don't remember consciously. Toward the end of it, there was one part that came through so clearly, and it was so intense, and it rang so many bells inside of me that I just had to write it down. I was just determined I wasn't going to lose it. And so I did. And what I wrote down is what I was told. You are a translator of the heavenly language. Didn't know what that meant at the time. I'm not saying I necessarily do now, but the journals would have to be that. And I know I came into this lifetime with many skills and abilities already in place around communication, which isn't something that this mind would choose as a pathway to light or anything else, because to the mind's way of seeing it, communication using words is certainly not the highest thing. Surely it's to be replaced, and shortly, by telepathy. So why would one pursue that, care about that, study that, delve and dive deeply into that, as I have? So, to most of this, and most things in life, I just have to say, I don't know. And I just watch. And somehow I seem to learn as things happen. Things are shown. Can't say I understand it. I've been watching a David Icke presentation from a couple of years ago that was just uploaded by someone. The Lion Sleeps No More, it's called, I guess after his book. Might be a 2012 lecture. It was in Great Britain, at any rate. He said he was just down the road from Buckingham Palace, or Windsor Castle, wherever. I haven't been there, but in reference to the Queen. Queen Mum Reptile, huh? Funny stuff, funny stuff. He's a bright, shining light, as each of us are. I am too. So are you. Each one of us has been working on something that's most special to us. And maybe a lot of us are like me. They don't know why. I mean, it doesn't make full logical sense in terms of this life, this study and love of communication that I have, getting an English degree more or less just for the joy of the subject matter. Go figure, huh? And it can be fun to delve deeply into whatever the subject is that lights your fires. I mean, you can tell just by, for instance, if you like to read, whether fiction or nonfiction, you can tell by the periods in time and the places that you're attracted to. These are, you have lifetimes there, and that's behind your interest, whether in the gothic romance or the sci-fi genre, or whatever it is. Eckhart Tolle loves history, and yet you can see, if you would look at the areas where he studies it most deeply, a lot of who and what we are just isn't represented by this one lifetime. We're a gestalt of all of our embodiments, as I like to call them, all of our lifetimes. And they're all now, because all there is now. Not because, they're just all now. Everything is all now. It's only this 3D realm where things seem to be stretched out over time. They're really not. That has its uses. And we're rather deeply into it, and this is how it works, so we might as well enjoy it, huh? And stop fighting. That's the strange thing, how we've been made to fight everything, to fight reality, to fight what is, to fight our own mind. That's kind of strange too, isn't it? Instead of seeing how beautifully it's all woven together. It's so strange. You hear things come down through the ages to us, words of wisdom, how it's samsara and it's nirvana, how it's heaven and it's hell. And when we first hear them, the words are more or less meaningless. They sound stupid, frankly. I mean, the mind wants to say, now look, it's one or the other, and obviously it's da-da-da, XYZ, whatever the mind believes at the time. So it's a whole habit, a whole way of looking that we're shifting out of, if we want to and if we're ready for this. It's the whole way of looking that's got to go, not so much just what is seen. And it's the way of being linear, of being 3D, of thinking in terms of either or, yes, no, right, wrong, on, off, that kind of thing. It's all of the above and all at the same time. And reality is anything but what we've been taught and programmed to believe. So now the shackles are coming off. A lot more of us are discovering the key to the prison door tucked away in our breast pocket, and we're stepping out. And for one thing, it's darn scary. At least when you're in prison, you get 3 square and you've got a bed and covers and some regularity. The mind loves things to stay the same. It wants things to be reliable and regular, understandable. Well, it thinks it understands. It doesn't. What it understands is all incorrect. And that's a hard thing. I think there's likely a lot of people that stop their waking up at the stage where they're beginning to see through things like 9/11, 7/7, anything you want to name, any of these shootings, where we're seeing it's the government behind it, pushing an agenda, and they want to grab more power, and so they'll do something that in the past worked perfectly well for them. But it's the scales are falling off of our eyes now, and we're seeing through what's going on. The whole thing with the playing around with the money and the markets and the banks not being, it's not federal, it's not a reserve, it's a private corporation. Finding out that the states have been corporatized, They are corporations, as is DC, all the rest of it, and that's behind the easy way the Constitution is violated every day of the week. And so, and I want to speak for a moment about fear. There's not any one of us that doesn't have layers and levels of fear. And, I suppose some of us are better than others at hiding it from ourselves, but if we'll be honest, there are situations in which fear will come up. I'm not saying I have any of the great big answers, just sharing what seems to be working for me. And the hugest part of it is in reclaiming your divine nature as your identity. We're so much bigger than 3D, People talk about chakras and the aura all the time, and I'm disappointed anymore when they're only talking about the 7 major chakras. There are other major chakras. There, as far as I know, there are 12. I have experience of them. Okay, these are above the body. How can I have chakras above the body? That doesn't make sense, does it? Unless I am not the body. I am bigger. I contain the body. Well, I contain the universe. I contain the cosmos. I contain the whole thing. But we're talking about this lifetime here, this aspect of the whole that I am. The chakra body, if you will. If we want to contain the rest of those major chakras, then we really do have to step up and out of seeing self as the 3D form. The 3D form is a tool, much like the mind is a tool that we use to have an experience here in this dimension. It's not who we are. And we're so not limited to it. Now, that being said, so if you look at it just as identity, who and what am I? And if we start knowing that we are the divine, I like David Icke's analogy really well. His vision in the tub that he had of everything being consciousness, and then there was an eye that appeared, and in front of this eye was a telescope, and at the end of the telescope was this world, this universe, this 3D realm, and the telescope took the form of a body. And so it's like the body we use is a telescope. It's a way to peer into or have an experience within 3D. Okay, now, that being said, if we look at fear, when I look at fear, I see that 90% of them, if not all of them, arise from the body-mind. Some things the body fears. And it's well that it does. I mean, if it doesn't fear a truck coming at you at 60 miles an hour while you're standing there twiddling your thumbs in the crosswalk, you got a problem. You're not going to stick around long, and whatever wisdom you have is likely going to exit stage left along with your body. So, this kind of fear is quite reasonable. Most of our fears seem to originate from the mind. The mind wants the constancy, the reliability. It wants things to be the same. It wants to feel like it understands things and objects to anything that messes with it and shoves it outside of its area of comfortability. So I find most fears right there. And when we get quiet and still inside and we look at them, well, somehow you can see through them. I mean, you can choose not to be afraid. It's just like you can choose to disagree with your mind. You can choose to have mind thinking along a certain line of thought and say, well, that's interesting, mind, but I don't buy it. Thank you very much, If a fear comes up, instead of the immediate response, unless that truck is coming, instead of the immediate response of figuratively running away, we can choose to handle it differently instead and just look at that. And if we're centered, if we're quiet when we're doing that and not, on the hamster wheel of the mind kind of a thing, very often we can see through the fear. And often enough, there's something developmental, something there that's a blessing or a benefit that we haven't been seeing. I find in my conversations with the universe, with nature, with what is, that it speaks first with a feather and a feather-light touch, just the gentlest breeze. And if you get it, that's fine. You look and you see and you go on, and you've gained something. It's when we don't get it, we don't look, we don't choose to see, we turn away, we run, we say, no, I don't like that, or I don't want to think about that, or whatever it is, the resistance. When the resistance comes up, it seems like that's when universe ups the ante and gets a little stronger in the presentation. And so it, instead of the feather, it's maybe the tap on the shoulder to get our attention next time. And it just keeps ramping up as long as we're not getting the message. The whole point is to get the message. The universe is a very safe place to be. Be in heart to hear that. Your mind will freak out. It's a beautiful place. It's a paradise, really. Can you hear it? Are your fears clamoring to be heard instead? We can trust Source to be divine. We can trust that God is good, so to speak, and that all is well. And that the divine is and has power beyond imagination. And that the divine is not overpowered nor overwhelmed by anything that any part or aspect of the creation would come up with. The divine is not impressed, nor worried, nor concerned, nor fearful. We are that. And we can choose to step into it. It doesn't matter that that aspect of our being seems to have been walled off from us, that we seem to be on a prison planet, that kind of thing. That's a seeming. These are illusory things created in order to see if we'll bite, if we'll believe. We don't have to. We can choose not to. You know, we can take our power back. It's possible. And it makes a different thing entirely of fear, because then fear just is a messenger. And it's telling us, like any discomfort that arises, it's telling us, hey, there's something you're not looking at. Would you please have a look at this? And if you want it to go away, why not have a look and listen and see if maybe that won't help? I mean, it won't always do the trick, and one look and poof, it's gone, it's vanished. But often enough, it will. It's being in a different space entirely, what I once would have called a different mindset. The whole paradigm has shifted. Do you have to believe that you're still in 3D? Says who and why? Are you living in the past? Are you perhaps missing some of what's available to you? I mean, we're all carving out our experience based on our beliefs. And I will continue to say, it doesn't matter that we've been programmed. It doesn't matter that we've been manipulated to the nth degree. It just doesn't, because that's not us. That's the body mind. And the body mind is, these are tools that we use in order to have an experience here in this realm. It's not who we are. You can't be touched. You can't be manipulated. You can't be harmed. And why would Source want to harm you? And if something seems like harm, look again and see to what extent you're identified with body, with mind, and maybe just take a step or two back from that. I'm not saying that all your pain will go away and you'll live in a fluffy, frilly heaven where only rainbows appear and stars sparkle and birds sing. That's bullshit, okay? That's mind garbage, mind candy. And some will try to sell you on that kind of a thing. You know, do it our way and this is what you'll experience. Well, that's not my message. There will be pain. As long as any one of us suffers in any way. As long as that goes on, that's the self doing that, feeling that. And we will have some sense of it. But more directly, in the life that you live, with your own personal interactions, things will come up that will cause pain. But again, like fear, when there's a stepping back from pain, there's something to be gained. Everything brings blessings. I don't care what it is. And it might not bring them in the immediate moment. It might not seem like any sort of a blessing at all. But don't we all say hindsight is 20/20? And doesn't that mean, given enough time, when we look back on things, we realize the beauty of it, the blessing, the benefit that was there? Well, okay then, let's time shift. Let's not wait for 20 years to go by. Let's choose to say, if everything brings blessing and benefit, let's choose to see it in the moment. Hey, what? It does some weird things with fear and pain and stuff that, you're so tempted to run from. And you begin to get to know your mind better and how it works and what it likes and what it doesn't like. And it's such a freedom to know and to feel free and to know, that's not you. It's okay to have all those feelings and all those thoughts and all the rest of it. Be careful what you act on, of course. But that's not you. That's not you. I made a pact with myself today. Kind of funny to be sharing it here, but this whole life is just kind of funny. And that pact is, I'm not going to worry anymore about people not getting it, about people looking up to me and trying to understand these things with mind and going off on the wrong track and all that kind of thing. And instead, I'm just going to let it be what it is, so that I get out of my own way. Now, what way in your life can you get out of your own way? I mean, it turns out, just like we're the rescuer that we've all been waiting for, we're also the one who's been tripping the self up. We're also the one that's in charge of that garden of beliefs where all those weeds are growing that, mess us up every time you try to walk through it, and you get torn up by the brambles and the rest of it, and it's a mess, and we're in charge. We've been taught to sit back on our butts and play the helpless victim and point the finger of blame everywhere but itself. And I'm not even saying blame self. That's ridiculous too. It makes no sense. Let's not only deal with what is, but how about we welcome it, even when it doesn't appear to make a lick of sense. We can still trust the underlying, the overlying integrity. The closer we come to being heart-centered, the more we have a direct, a kind of, not visceral, but almost a visceral connection, a feelingness, a direct sensing of the energy. No words for this. No, these words aren't working. We have a direct connection with Source, and we can feel it. And the funny thing is, we can feel it in everything, in and through everything that comes our way. The native peoples, the aboriginals, are really good at this kind of a thing. And we've picked it up with the mind and made it into castles of nonsense. And practices and ways of being, and take this plant or that one, and all the rest of it. And sometimes the wisdom gets so hidden it's buried. But the heart always knows. And it's on us to find our way in there, and to finally recognize that we're not the mind and we're not the body. We are the Source. Namaste.